Good morning on Thursday, October 13th. It's time for episode 123 of the 359 podcast with Roger Chang and Ben Fox Rubin. Good morning, guys.
Morning. Happy Thursday. Greetings. We're almost over. The week's almost done.
Yeah.
All right.
It's
well,
all right. I was
don't
out
sound
most
too
of the week
excited.
anyway. I don't have to look at you goons anymore.
there you go.
Yeah.
That's something to look forward to.
Sure.
So, surprise, surprise, we're going to be talking about Samsung.
Again.
Yeah,
I know. It's the new Pokemon Go.
It's dominated the headlines, and it continues to do so. And we'll talk a little bit about the little incentive that Samsung's throwing in to get you to turn your Note 7s back in.
Yeah. And we've also got a feature about the NYPD and smartphones. They've finally joined the future.
You'll never guess which phone
Yes.
they actually use.
I can't wait to talk about that.
It's pretty awesome.
And also Obama's budding cyber war with Russia.
Ooh,
Not China.
the new Cold War.
The new Cold War. We'll see
China.
what ends up happening.
China.
Right.
It's not China. It's
So
Russia.
let's get started. Let's
and
do it.
Look, as always, if you have any questions about these topics, leave them in the comment section. Our producer Brian will grab them. We'll do our best to answer them.
All right. And we'll start the recording in 3, 2.
Welcome to the 359, where we talk about the top tech news of the day, plus whatever crap we want to throw in. I'm Ben Fox Rubin.
I'm Roger Chang.
Samsung is trying to prevent a flood of customer defections by offering $100 to anyone who trades in their Galaxy Note 7 for another Samsung phone. This offer comes after Samsung had to issue yet another recall on its fire-starting Note 7. So, Roger, $100, is that enough to rebuild trust?
No, I mean, it's a nice first step. I think it's a nice little olive branch. I think the real incentive here, or the real motivation is Samsung really wants to get people to trade in their phones. We've talked to a number of hardcore super fans of Note 7s who say despite all the warnings, despite all the reports, they will keep their phone. They will just take the risk.
Really dumb.
Yeah. And so
Do not agree with that.
no,
at all.
that is completely stupid, by the way. If you have a Note 7, you should absolutely turn it back in. Because there is a real hazard. The percentages are low theoretically, but they're much higher than what anyone in the industry feels comfortable with.
Right, and you will live another day
Right.
to buy a Note 8 or whatever the heck they call that new phone.
So yeah, it's definitely there are a couple reasons for this, right? It's a little bit of an olive branch. It's also trying to get people to actually turn in their phones. Lastly, this $100 deal only applies if you trade in for another Samsung phone. So they're trying to keep you in the Samsung ecosystem or Samsung family. Just to note that if you want to trade your phone in for another brand, another device like HTC, LG, whatever, they will give you a $25 credit. So they're not giving you
Not
nothing.
as nice.
Not as nice, but it's something.
Well, how many folks do you think are going to swap to a different phone maker?
It's hard to tell because these folks are the most loyal Samsung customers. They said time and time again, if Note 7 users are almost fanatical about Samsung. They love their S Pen.
They could literally do no wrong.
Well, that's the thing. The folks that we talked to about why they want to keep their phone is because there's nothing really comparable in the market. You know, the iPhone 7 Plus, the upcoming Pixel XL. These are all big phones, but they're not quite what the Note is. The Note has an S Pen. It's got a stylus, and that's sort of custom made for the phone. And the users of the Note franchise they love that thing. So there isn't really another alternative out there that's like the Note. So,
Well, all right. Maybe the NYPD has found the solution for them. I don't think so, actually. So next up, the NYPD this year finally caught up with the modern age by equipping all its officers with smartphones. The phones can be used to respond to crimes faster and connect with folks in the community. But I was a little surprised by the phones they chose. These are Microsoft Lumias.
Windows phones, yes.
Yeah, are Windows phones even still a thing?
Not really. They're kind of. I mean, they're a thing as in there are products out there, but no one's buying them.
Right. Well, except for the NYPD.
And the worst part about it is these phones, one of them came out in 2014. The other one came out last year. These are all outdated phones. I don't think you could actually buy them now, or you might find them in a bargain bin somewhere.
Nice.
But
Good tax savings.
That's what. Well, to be fair, the NYPD argues that they picked it for security features and the ability to remotely manage these devices. Although I would argue you could do the same thing with an iPhone or an Android.
Maybe. I don't know.
No,
I don't know anything about Windows
You
phones.
absolutely can. But no, it's just an interesting point that like our the finest New York's finest is protecting us with the power of Windows Phone.
Sure. And last, Obama is waiting some sort of response to Russia's alleged cyber attacks to sway the presidential election. This could be some badass cyber warfare. It's already going on right now. But what I think is really interesting about it is that it's possible the U.S. will never actually admit to doing any of it.
Yeah, no, it's like the secret war that's going to go on.
Look, if Obama, if you're listening to the podcast, because I know you are, please enlist me on this cool cyber war. I want to,
Yes.
I don't know, attack
We want to be
Russian
on the front
trolls.
lines of this cyber war.
Yes, absolutely. So if you want to read more about these stories, check us out on CNET. I'm Ben Fox Rubin.
I'm Roger Chang.
Thanks for listening.
And go figure, we have a lot of hardcore Samsung fans
Of
in the chat
course.
today
No,
who will
really?
definitely
Of
be
course.
bought back. No,
Oh.
shocking. No. And as well, they should. However, one I found fascinating is someone who's incurred like a double whammy. Joseph said they cannot buy me back, especially now that I have a 6-month-old washer that's on recall with them. They have no idea what they're going to do. So he got the exploding phone and the exploding washer. It's like, that is
it's
bad
a
luck.
top-loading washer that if you run it at a certain cycle, like the nuts and bolts will like blow out.
Dude, that sucks. Like, we're
At least
so
it won't
sorry.
We're
overheat
very
and burn
sorry
you
for
up,
that.
but
Yeah.
it's pretty terrible.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah,
mean, I do hope that Samsung I don't think they could possibly hurt so bad from this. Like,
No,
their
they'll be-
company's
they
going to be
will
fine.
It's not a
survive.
fatal move
No.
for sure. They can bounce back from this.
Even
It's going to take a while.
Volkswagen is still around. I mean, like,
I
and
know.
they had to face a ton of
Although
regulatory
we were having a
fines.
discussion about sort of what's comparable to this in terms of what's happened in the mobile industry. There have been other phone recalls and other and it's like this, but nothing to this magnitude. Like
Right.
we had to
Not a
actually
flagship.
No, we had to basically compare it to the Volkswagen incident recall, the Ford Pinto, the Tylenol pill recall. I mean, that's the kind of like that's the magnitude of terribleness that this is now.
Right.
It's not just like a minor tech recall. It's like
Samsung
It's right up
has
there.
transcended the tech industry,
That's
but in
right.
a way they never
No.
would have wanted to.
no, not at all.
Yeah.
Too little, too late.
It's $100. It is in some ways, but I think people tend to forget sometimes, and so when they come
it's
around
hard
with
to-
the S8,
And it's also hard to argue that it's too late because a lot of this kind of dragged on. There were like multiple developments to it that even that was kind of out of Samsung's control, right? Like there was a first recall, and then they had to wait for the CPSC to weigh in, and then that happened, and then the second stuff happened, and like it just, to be fair, or Samsung didn't do a really good job of communicating these issues, especially during the second time around. But part of it was out of their control.
yes, because their phones were terrible this time.
They'll be back, probably better than ever, though. Let's be honest. They're
It
not
was
going
a really
this is going back under the microscope after this.
Oh, absolutely. Well,
the thing,
And it's
that
fairly
to me-
subjective to say how big an impact this truly did have. I mean, yes, it was bad, but it's not like the entire line exploded.
right, that would be a real problem. Like if
No kidding.
if the S8 came out and
A
that started
100%
overheat-
failure rate.
Oh my god.
that would
Definitely not
that
the
would
case.
be really tragic. That would cause them to really
That would-
start to
that would
reconsider
kill
their
things
mobile
off.
business.
Oh,
But I
yeah.
think the comment that rang most true through this entire week's worth of shows discussing this as we drill it into the ground is the person who said this is going to really shine a spotlight back on the concept of quality control, not only in
Absolutely.
Samsung but across
Yeah.
all consumer brands.
Well, I had a reporter digging into this in terms of looking at this kind of issue. We found that no one really actually tests for this sort of thing. Like maybe I'm sure Samsung internally does, but in terms of like the government regulatory agencies, the carriers, the phone carriers who also do their own testing. Most of the testing is based on like signal quality, whether or not the phone could actually make
if
a
it
call.
works, yeah.
No one really tests something like this. That's why it kind of like slipped through everybody's radar.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess maybe they'll be adding some additional testing later just to
Can you
like
imagine?
for safety issues.
What I imagine is, what was one thing that was really impressive with this phone, they packed in a lot into a fairly thin device, right? It's thin, it was small, it was pretty compact for the power that it had, the screen size that it had. I think all those resources drawing into that battery, I think they're gonna give a second thought to making the next phone as thin or as slim as possible. I think it might be even a little bit bigger just to accommodate the space.
Well, maybe if the technology bakes for another year, I would say that that could potentially help them bring back something very similar, but they just needed to spend a little bit more time improving the blueprint.
Yeah.
But because that's what got people so excited about the Note 7 in the first place, was that they packed so much into that one design.
Yeah, and I think it's the pressure of just constantly trying to one up yourself. So eventually, something like this was bound to happen.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Here's some interesting information. Now, this is from our friend and listener Mark in the chat, and we have no way to 100% validate this data, so take it with a grain of salt, but it sounds pretty believable. So he says, I work for a wireless carrier. 30% of the Note 7 trade-ins have gone to Apple, 50% have switched to another Samsung device, and 20% have moved on to another Android device. Now, again, we can't present this as fact.
Right.
But thank you, Mark, for contributing that information. And there sounds like there's some merit to that.
I'm
like,
a little surprised. Actually, I'm a little
interesting.
surprised by that. I didn't think that Note 7 users would move to Apple. Like, I didn't think
Well, but
the
you're only
chunk of
talking about
Apple-
30%.
30% for
70%.
me, that's a bigger chunk than I was even expecting. Because if I'm a Note 7 user, I'm pretty hardcore about Samsung, hardcore about Android. I probably would have gone to another Android phone or gone to Samsung. Like most of the folks I talked to who did trade in their phones went to an S7 Edge. They weren't happy about it, but they went to that Edge, the sort of the step down phone that came out earlier this year. And I was really expecting people to kind of, especially with the second round, to kind of hold off, maybe wait for the Pixel XL.
Yeah, just not have a smartphone for a while.
Yeah, I guess that's true. That's probably not really an option, is it?
No, it's not.
eye pigeons.
Yeah, no, I think
I'm going to keep pitching
back to
this
the-
until it's completely done.
Yes.
back to the point I was making. Like, there's not really another comparable phone. Like, there's the LG V20 that's come out. There's I guess the Moto Z, but there aren't that many phones that can do what the Note 7
Right,
does.
so you might have to go back to the Note 5.
Yeah.
Something like that.
yeah.
Well, given that concept, I guess it makes sense that they will come out with something pretty similar to the Note 7 next year, like after they actually
I just don't know if they're going to call it the Note.
retrench.
I
At
think
first
they'd be
I thought
smart
no
to
way.
take their time. Like,
Yeah,
take
no,
a step
there's
back
a-
and really slow down the process.
But yeah, I at first I was like, no way are they going to kill off the Note name. But after so many of these podcasts, now I'm starting to think, you know what? Like maybe they will get rid of the Note name and just be like, it's called something different.
I
You
don't-
think
Totally
by
new.
next week our bosses will let us move on to another topic?
Of course not.
No. We'll still be talking about this.
Let's just go back to Pokemon Go, please.
That would be great.
Those
That
were
would be
more
nice.
innocent times.
Right. 2016 has become very, very dark.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Mark's back in the chat, and he says Windows phones. Oh my God, Ice Age for cell phones. And to which I assume you're talking about the huge blockbuster film hit Ice Age, starring Ray Romano. And if that's the case,
Yes.
you are 100% correct.
That is right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of unbelievable. Like switching gears, it's unbelievable. The NYPD, like one, finally just got smartphones.
Right.
Like it's an interesting note in Alfred's story.
You know what I thought about it? I realized maybe they got Windows phones because they're less likely to be stolen. You know, if like
People
somebody
take the phone, they're like, "What is this?"
yeah, like if a cop accidentally dropped it on the
Who's gonna
street or
steal
something.
a cop's phone though?
People
I don't
try to
know.
steal cops' guns. You know,
That's
like
true.
this is
But like
a
they
little
don't
different.
know that it's a cop's phone. But if it's a Lumia, they're
like,
like, "Here, can
yeah.
I turn this in?" Like
Yeah.
I don't even want this damn thing.
And not just like the latest Lumias too, like the outdated Lumias.
Picture that scene from The Simpsons where they break into Lenny's house and he's like, "Don't tell anyone I live like this." Just embarrassed by his own life.
No, so one of the interesting points of it's Alfred's story, by the way, and is that before they got these phones, they were actually unable to give out their phone number or an email address. Like
Or an email
yeah,
address.
like for someone who like for a victim trying to get in touch with that officer, they had to basically call into the precinct and like leave a voice message in a like group phone.
Right.
That like sometimes the entire squad had to share.
Oh.
It was like impossible to reach an officer if you actually had to. Because it was against the policy to like give out your personal phone number, and they didn't have email addresses or something. So it was really, really rather strange.
I was just kind of floored by the fact that I was just like, wait, they didn't have smartphones?
Yep.
Like, what's going on here? So, all right, they have them now. Thank God.
Yes, and eventually they'll upgrade to Windows 10. Mm-hmm. And so
That would be great.
Yeah.
They're not even upgraded to Windows 10.
they're not even there yet. No, because they've got the old. Those old phones are running on Windows Phone 8, I believe.
Right, Vista or something.
Vista
They're
window
Vista phones. They're fighting crime with Vista phones.
So before we wrap it up, and before the inevitable grand return of Samsung, because it will bounce back hopefully stronger than ever after this, do you? There's a question in the chat. Do we think that of all people right now, Google Pixel can capitalize on this fallout?
Yeah,
Totally.
I think so.
Yeah.
Totally.
They're the ones that stand to benefit the most.
I would think that they would try to rush the phones out earlier, but we've seen what's happened with that. So
Yeah,
maybe
that's
they'll
probably
make
not a
sure.
good idea.
Yeah, maybe they'll make sure. But it's coming out in like later this month
This
anyway.
month. Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
yeah.
going to be pretty soon. And I think that those phones have a lot of what people are looking for. The XL is probably a pretty good Note 7 replacement.
I think so. Similar size, high-end specs, all the
Yep.
great camera, all the stuff you really want. It doesn't have the stylus, but then no other phone has a stylus. So
I mean,
you
it
kinda
didn't
gotta
really
look there.
shatter any new ground here, but it's a good middle of the road, pretty
Yeah.
attainable, pretty adaptable for
And if
someone.
you're
Like I could
really-
probably get my mom on a Pixel.
If you're really interested in their AI platform too, I think that maybe the Note 7 people are curious about like whatever cutting edge technology
Right.
is available out there. And so you could jump on board and start talking to a
You
robot.
can have
early.
awkward conversations with Google Assistant.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of like what we do here.
Siri, shut this show down.
There you go.
There you go.
All right, it's good place to wrap things up. If you liked anything you saw here, check us out on CNET. Our podcast is also available on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud, FeedBurner, and Google Play Music. That's it for the week.
See you Monday.
Way
See
to
you on
go,
Monday.
everybody.
Yeah.
All right.
It's
Thanks
a
for
wrap.
listening.
Thanks for sticking around. It's been fun having you all this week.
Yep. We'll try not to talk about Samsung anymore.
Try.
Try.